Welcome to Module 4 of Letters to My Daughters. I can't believe we are towards the end of this program. I'm so excited that you all have chosen to join us this evening, this morning, wherever it is that you are watching, at whatever time you are watching. Welcome into this virtual space, this virtual gathering. And as you entered into this space, you should have been prompted to place your prayer requests in the chat. If you have not already done so, please place in the chat, introduce yourselves. Let us know where around the world you are watching or gathering. And if you have any prayer requests, please feel free to place them in the chat so that we can hold you as a collective community in prayer. And as always, my intention is for us to enter into this space intentionally and to find some time to center and to ground ourselves. So before we get started, let's pray. Gracious and eternal God, we give you thanks and praise for this day that you have made. God, we thank you for indeed we know that it is you who is orchestrating our lives. God, we know that it is you who is calling us into life anew. And so, God, as you continue to call us to the work, to the ministry, to the rest, God, our prayer is that you would equip our hearts and our ears, our minds, so that we might hear your voice more clearly. God, be with us now in this time of conversation, of discussion, of learning, that we might take the information that we received this evening, this morning, this afternoon, and God, that we might use it for the edification of this, your beloved community. God, thank you for letters to my daughters and all who are gathered. And it is in your Son, Jesus' name, that we do pray. And together the people of God said amen and amen. You all, we have made it to module 4, almost to the end. And I can't believe that we are looking at the closing of this program. It has just been such a pleasure to get to know you all and to hear and read your comments and your emails and your questions. For module 4, we are talking about maternal health across the diaspora. You know, maternal health is not something that is specific to the United States, right? We know that the United States has the highest rate of maternal mortality among industrialized nations. However, the maternal health or maternal mortality is a reality across the globe, and specifically for us as United Methodists, right, who abide by a connectional nature of the church, and we practice that. We are in conversation and communion and fellowship with United Methodists all around the world. That's one of the things that I absolutely love about the United Methodist Church. And so I wanted to make sure that we were employing that as well. And I wanted to make sure that of the voices and the experiences that we include in this conversation on maternal health, that we are engaging our connectional nature and that we are looking at different realities and experiences outside of those women, girls, and femmes specific to the United States. So tonight, I am really excited for you all to engage in the discussion that I had with Deaconess Leah Wandera. A little bit about her. Leah is the first Kenyan and African deaconess in the United Methodist Church. As a deaconess, she is called into a lifetime of lay professional ministry to alleviate suffering, eradicate causes of injustice, and all that robs life of dignity and worth, to facilitate the development of full human potential, and share in building global community through her foundation, WEMA Health Foundation. In the capacity that she serves as a deaconess, she is also currently serving as the African Region Coordinator for Deaconess and Home Missioners Movement in Africa under United Women in Faith. Leah also graduated from Moi University in Kenya with a Bachelor of Science in Project Management and Planning, and in 2016 attained her Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education in 2022. 2010 in high school in the Soweto slums of Nairobi, Kenya. And so I thoroughly enjoyed engaging with Leah and learning of her experience and her work in ministry and what she is doing to promote and advocate for gender justice within the United Methodist Church. And so I hope that you all will enjoy this conversation as well as we discuss Black maternal health across the diaspora. Check it out. So first, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out in your busy schedule and busy life to join in this conversation. I am hopeful that there will be an added element, added perspective to this conversation that we've been having on maternal reproductive health, specifically as it relates among Black women, women of color, using that as our starting point. And then exploring how it is manifested elsewhere. But I would like to begin, it is our custom with Letters to My Daughters to introduce ourselves using our maternal lineage. And so I always introduce myself as Camille. I am the daughter of Michelle and the granddaughter of Florine and the great-granddaughter of Mrs. Mary Lane. And so if you could, for those who are watching, introduce yourself through your maternal lineage. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Leah Wandera, daughter to Gentrix Tabu Maiga, granddaughter to Clementina Nanyanga, and great-granddaughter to Namsonge Wilbroda. And I'm also a mother to Esther Njoki, 8 months. So, yeah.
So you are a new mother.
Yes.
A new mother. I'm curious to know if there are any things that you have learned already in your 8 months of motherhood. Any aha moments that you have learned?
Oh, I could write a book about that. It's just an exciting moment, but also comes with its own anxiety of just wanting to see your baby growing healthy, and especially as a new mom, I would say fumbling along with teaching myself some of the things that I never got a chance to learn. You know, I would say like in school, you are taught a lesson, then you're given a test. This is a test that teaches you a lesson. And so just seeing her grow each and every day is just so amazing. And how together we get to learn and unlearn and teach each other on just how to walk this journey together. I think to me that has been so humbling, reminding me of this great life that I have that I need to take care of. So to me, that is just has been so humbling. And I would say it has given me even a deeper, not that I don't appreciate or love my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, but it has just given me that deeper connection to my lineage of motherhood. Mm-hmm. And so I look at my great-grandmother, grandmother, and my mom, and I see myself as a mother. And it has just given me that like deeper connection to the upbringing and nature that I went through in the hands of these great women in my life. And so just counting myself as a woman impacting this life that will grow and become, a great life again. It's just given me a different purpose and meaning in life from, who I am. So,
what lessons did you learn from your mother or the women in your family? What lessons did you learn from them about motherhood?
So, I would say one, my grandmother, let me start with my grandmother. I was named after my grandmother. And so to us in my culture, naming is a very important practice to us. And so because I was named after her, She looked after me. She took care of me as a daughter to her, not even being a granddaughter. And so most of the things when I was growing up and becoming into like my teenage, she would always be there to remind me, to teach me. I remember when I started my menstrual cycle, the first time I had my periods, I was even so afraid to go and talk to my mom and even talk to my sisters. I went to talk to my grandmother, and she looked at me and she said, "Do you know?" Yes, how many years ago I had this experience, and she's like, and you are asking me, and she just said, oh, so the first thing she did, sanitary towels were not, and now that we are talking about maternal health and reproductive, let me just mention this. Sanitary towels were not at our disposal. I grew up in a rural area, and the closest town is very far. And by then, my parents or my mom could not even afford the 50 Kenyan shillings to give you to buy the sanitary towel. That's like a luxury. So what she did, she cut a piece of blanket, you know. She went in the bedroom and cut a piece of blanket, and she came and told me, now, this is how you fold it, and this is how you use it. And then I'm like, this? She said, yes. And my fear was like, what if I go jumping and it falls? And then she's like, so now you know. The first thing she told me, you have to stop climbing trees. And I was like, what? She's like, yes, you have to stop climbing trees, because when you climb trees, it will fall down. And that was very, in another words, she was telling me, you have to stop being playful, because to me, climbing trees was not only for the boys, but also for the girls. So yeah, so that is the first lesson she taught me. And then she talked to me and she told me, now, go tell mama, go talk to your mother. And now I gained the courage to go and have a conversation with my mother. So to me, not only were there to nurture me, but when I was growing up, becoming who I am, and just discovering myself, they were there to help me understand myself and discover myself in a very simple way, but so meaningful that they could guide me. So.
And I would imagine so much of what you were sharing about the relationship that you have with your grandmother, I have the same. My mother, she had me while she was in college, and my grandmother raised me for an earlier portion of my life. And so we really have a really interesting and strong bond and relationship. And she has taught me so much about not just how to be a woman, right? And in all of, like in all of that, and what that entails. But I also got my sense of commitment to justice from her, and my sense of she always taught me, to whom much is given, much is required, such that I thought she made that comment up. I didn't know it came from the Bible. So when I was younger, I was like, my grandmother always told me, to whom much is given, much is required. And then when I got older, I was like, oh, she's just quoting scripture. But so much of my activist self, right, and my commitment to this work of gender justice was first informed by the relationship that I had primarily with my grandmother, but then my mother and my aunt and great grandmother, all the women in my life. And so I'm curious, in your experience, how you first became aware of this calling that you have to work with women and girls, and if you saw a connection from the ministry that you do to your upbringing.
So I'll say, when we were growing up, My father, I'm a pastor's kid.
Mhm.
And so my dad is now a retired minister of United Methodist Church. But before then, we were members of Anglican Church of Kenya.
Mm.
And most of the time, we were at home with my mom. And my mother, she's one of those hardworking women that I've never seen. She taught me how to do farming
Mm.
and bring food on the table. She will never let us go hungry. She would sell whatever she has to just buy you a book or a pen. Because for her, she never went to college or, and so education to her was very, very important. But one thing that I would say that really got me into questioning our system, especially when it comes to education for the girls. And I think that is when I started now asking myself, why not do something? My two elder sisters never went to high school.
Mm.
It's not that they were not brilliant, they were,
Mhm.
but there were no resources to just take them to school.
Mhm.
And so I will see my elder sister wake up in the morning with my mom to go like I don't know how to say this in English. English is not my first language.
Mm.
But in our language we call it, I'll say in our language, it sounds so interesting, garia garia.
Mhm.
What that means is they go work on someone's farm and they get paid. And it
Mhm.
was not even much of payment. It was like half a dollar, like 50 Kenyan shillings or $1 per day. And so instead of my elder sister going to school, and I'm a fourth born actually in the family of seven,
Mm.
I will see her wake up in the morning. My mom will wake her up. They go to do farming. She spent there the whole day just farming to get $1. Why? Because probably my brother has been chased from away from school and they need fees,
Mm.
or he needs books, or he needs pens. And so my sister, and she gave up her education to help mama find finances to help my brother go to school,
Mm.
you know. And that to me, when I was growing up, really kind of disturbed me a lot. And every time I'll go complain to my grandmother, because sometimes I wouldn't complain to my mom was a very disciplinarian.
Mm. Mhm.
You will go asking, she will look at you and she asks, so do you want me to leave you people be on the street, or you rather see me, working for someone to just help you guys? So I wouldn't go complain direct to my mom. I'll go complain to my grandma and I ask her, um, why is this happening? Like, why would the mama have to do this? Why is it that dad is not able to help? But then my dad was a minister, but the church, okay, I'll just say that the United Methodist Church, since I was a child in that house, I've never seen my dad receive a salary.
Mhm.
And so he was a full-time pastor, but with no salary. And so my mom took up, the household when it comes to food, when it comes to clothes, when it comes to war, like she was the one trying to manage those things made. And my dad will just try whatever he will get, to bring home. And so I will see like my mom running up and down every time. And so my sisters had to give up all the education to just like step in and help. But my grandmother told me one thing. Um, so I was named after her, and she would call me namesake, you
Mhm.
know. And she would look at me and she would like, if you don't like it, change it. Yeah, she would just say, why are you complaining? If you don't like it, change it. Do something about it. And then I'll look into my grandmother's eyes and I tell her, if I grow up, I want to build a big house for my mom. I want to make a lot of money for my mom and my sisters so that they stop doing all this. Because they will come back home so tired that even bathing it, she'll just sit there and she's like, I'm just tired. And so my grandma was kind of instilling in me sort of a critical consciousness of asking why. The internet is not stable. Sorry. I froze a little bit. So she was instilling in me that critical consciousness of, asking, right? Asking and wanting to do something to change the situation. So I'll say, as a child, I didn't realize how meaningful that was. But then when I completed my high school, and I completed my primary, and it was so hard for me to go to high school because by then my dad couldn't afford it to take me to high school. And my mom's health was deteriorating. She was just becoming weaker and weaker. She couldn't do more works on the farm. And my elder sister was then married because just being at home, the next option is just getting married. So she got married very early. And our second born sister also, she had gotten married. And so there was that fear in me of, am I next to get married or am I going to go to school? And when I made the decision to take myself to school, it was just one day, we were selling groundnuts on the streets of Nairobi. That's where we were staying. That's a very long story to tell you how we got there. And then I saw this group of students. Actually, one of them had died. And they were, I think they were having they were coming from the church with the body. I don't know where they were going to school or something. And the way I just saw these students just walking by singing. Yes, they were mourning, but to me, something inside just felt like I should be among them. Not seated by the roadside, hawking or selling, the roasted nuts to people for us to just find something. To me, I felt like I should be among them. And then I turned to my cousin and I told her, I want to join them. And she was like, are you crazy? Can't you see those people are mourning? You see, mourning going down. Do you want to? And I say, yeah, I just want to join them. And I followed them. I followed them.
You followed them?
Yes, I followed them. I followed them not because of their fellow who had died and they were carrying the body walking along the street. I followed them because they were in school uniform. And to me, I just wanted to know where are these students coming from or where they're going. And then when I followed them, they were going to the school. And so I just saw how they entered the gate and I stood there and I looked at the roof. I just looked at the compound and I told myself, this is where you're supposed to be, not waking up and being on the street. And I told my cousin, I want to go back to school. And she's like, how is that going to happen? And I told her, you know what, we are the one who make these roasted nuts. We are the one who pack them. We are the one who count the money. At the end of the day, we take money to Mama. Mama won't know if I take even $1 from it. And she's like, are you going to do that? And I just said, I need money for interview because we were to pay like $3 for 300 Kenyan shillings, which is equivalent to $3 interview. And I took for 3 days, I took the first day $1, the second day $1, the third day $1, because I didn't want Mama to know that her money was missing from her business,
Yeah.
And I took myself to school. But when I sat there after the interview, they called me in and I had passed so well. But they looked into my eyes and asked me, where Where are your parents? Who is going to pay fees for you? And that is the time they really reminded me that you are not supposed to be here if you don't have money.
Mm.
And to me, I was like, should I go back home? How do I even go and start explaining to my dad or my mom that I took myself to school? And I just looked straight into their eyes and I said, you know what? I don't know where my parents are. Don't even ask me. And they went, why? And I said, I just don't know. And they say, where do you live? I said, no, I just live somewhere here with, with a certain pastor. And they were like, oh, really? I said, yeah. Because I had done my own research and I had learned that it was a Catholic school and I support brave but needy students. And I just knew that I really wanted to go to school, but I don't know how. And at that moment, I just found myself lying about my parents' whereabouts.
Mm.
And she looked at me and she said, okay, get out, give us a minute to talk. I went out and I was called back. And the principal looked at me and she said, your performance will determine your stay in school. And I was like, oh, just performance? You should ask me to do something else, just performance. You have it. And that's how I got to go to school.
Mm.
And so having that experience of how I went to go to school, trust me, I can write a whole book about this. It's a very long story. But I managed to go through the 4 years with just so much struggle. Until today, I don't have my high school certificate.
Mm.
Because it was held, I couldn't go back to get. Yes, there were just a lot of struggles around it. But what I wanted is just to have that knowledge in here. And that is what I got. And so from there, I used to look at my young sisters and I felt so sorry because every time I went to school and every time I was coming back home, it kept on reminding me how I just lied of not having parents, not knowing where my parents are for the sake of getting
An education.
an education.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I used to look into my sister's eyes and I felt like they shouldn't do the same thing to just get education, which is their right. But not because our parents didn't love educating us, they just didn't have the resources to educate us. And if they lacked resources to educate us, the only available thing was immediate marriage.
Mm.
And I didn't want to see my young sisters go through that. So that is where my advocacy for girls' rights, for women's rights started from. Because one, I felt like my mom was too tired. She needed some economic empowerment. I felt like my sisters gave up their life so much for the survival of our families. We shouldn't be the case. But in our culture, you find that when it comes to either a boy or a girl, the girls are sacrificial lambs of the survival of their families, especially when the families are so poor. Because a father will ask, why should I sell my 3 cows to take you to school if I can marry you off and get 3 more cows? And so it just becomes like so hard for the girls to get a chance to go to school. But at the end of the day, when we get married, the big burden, the household burden falls on the women's shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Taking care of the children is the mother in that house. When the children are sick, is the mother in that house. Food is the mother in that house. Clothes is the mother in that house. And with the community where I came from, especially when our young men are unemployed, they get so desperate and frustrated. What they do is just wake up, go to the center of we call it town, we call it sort of a center, either drink alcohol and be there, but when they come back, they expect to find food on the table. When there is no food on the table, beating up the woman that they left at home. So it becomes a very huge burden on the shoulders of the mother in that house. So that's where, to me, that's when I started asking and questioning our systems and saying, then how should a girl or a woman also get the right to go to school, work, earn money, have a good life, and not give up her dreams for the survival of her family or her community?
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that stemming from your grandmother, right? The wisdom of if you don't like a thing, then change it. And not just set out to change it with resources or tools that you don't have. But I sense that there was also this call to think critically about the thing, right? Which I'm hearing pushed you to education. And I really appreciate how, when we look at the quality of life for women, for girls, and how, right, historically, it has been this single trajectory of marriage, children, caring for a home, and having to uh, cope with, right, whatever environment your marriage or relationship created. And all of that is the context that we are considering when we're talking about these choices that women and girls are making. We have been talking about Black maternal health. Initially, the maternal mortality rate in the United States currently is deplorable. And the question that I have, so if we're looking within this context of the quality of life for girls into their womanhood, right? Marriage and making the decision to have children is very prominent. I'm curious to know what experiences had you observed? What does the current state of maternal and reproductive health look like for Kenyan women, right? In your own context, what when a woman or a young girl is making a decision to have a child, what is supporting her? What support or resources does she have? And then also, what are some of the things that commonly work against her throughout her maternal, reproductive health and maternal health journey?
That's a very, I'm just taking a breath because I'm like,
I know.
that's
I
a
feel like
very
I
deep
just said a
question.
lot. I just said a lot, but I think the crux of like what I'm trying to get at is,
Yes,
so what
yes.
does it look like, right, to go through that process of, I have to make the decision between education or marriage, right, and in that also is, oh, I'm about to have a child,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
but also layered onto that is the health resources. I know, and I want to be sensitive, right? Because it is not all bad, right? I think that the health resources that are present serve a purpose and serve those purposes well. But then I think also in terms of like where we are to put our work, right? We have to begin to question what has uh not worked well, right? Like what things do women and girls need as they're making those choices to bear children?
So I said I was taking a breath because I felt like you just touched the core in my heart. Yes, and my work focuses on health and education.
Mhm.
And because to me, I believe that if you don't know about it, it's hard to ask about it.
Yeah.
If you know, you can ask. From being a young Kenyan woman, growing up, sexuality is not a topic
Mm.
that we put on the table. Not even my mother would feel comfortable to even talk to me, you know. And that is how they were socialized and nurtured. And so it's sort of kind of carried along. The only education we get to know is the biology that we learn from school. And also being an educator for reproductive health education, we are kind of limited on what we are supposed to tell the students and what we are not supposed to. So what that means is access to information is very limited, is very filtered. And adding on top that it's traditionally a taboo to talk about sexuality and our sexual issues, reproductive health, then we grow up not knowing much. We grow up not knowing even that, hey, a girl or a woman has the right to family planning. And there is different types of family planning. We grow up not knowing like, hey, as a girl, I have the right to consent, to say no or yes, But what we get socialized in is, oh, you are a woman, you were born and created for a man. And at this age, you're going to get married. And as a woman, when you get home, you need to, be submissive and take care of your husband and take care of your home. Now, that aspect of take care of yourself is always completely left out. And so we step in there knowing that I'm here to do what I'm required and I'm told to do. And that's why when you come home, you find a girl who was married at the age of 10, 12, 15. By the time she gets 21, she has like 5, 6 children, and she's still giving birth. And you wonder and you ask yourself, does she even know about family planning? And does she even have an option to use that family planning? So it becomes very hard. So I would say limited access to information and knowledge, and also not most of the girls having gone to school. It contributes a lot to us not knowing. And if we don't know, as I said, we can't ask for. And then when it comes to even the available resources, I would say the life in the urban town is a little bit different from the life when I compare to, because I was born and raised in the rural, but at a certain time we moved to Nairobi. So I've lived both, I can really tell. When you go to the rural areas, mostly, our clinics, our hospitals, they have very limited resources, especially when it comes to women issues. And the woman only gets a chance to go to the hospital when she's pregnant and when she's going for checkup. And then when she gives birth, if luckily she's taken to the hospital, or she'll give birth at home. And when she gives birth at home, it is our midwives that are helping. Now, these midwives have never had a chance to go to a midwifery school, any medical school. It is that information that was passed to them by our great grandmothers, our grandmothers, and our mothers. And so they keep on practicing that. Now, it's okay. To me, traditionally, it's okay. But we reached at a point whereby we can't not only rely on our traditional information. Now, these are some of the things that get into the way. Why? Because trust you me, sorry, there are cases whereby someone is pregnant with the twins, even triplets, and they will never know until the day they're giving birth. Now, if this person ever developed any complication, that's the end of it. That's why we still have a high mortality rate in our communities. Why? Because, and I'm saying this because, and I would say also, having lived out of my country, having lived here in the US, it also gives me a different experience. When I was pregnant, I don't know if I even survived if I was back at home.
Really?
I'm not saying that all the issues about the maternal health have been addressed here in the US, but I would say it's better when I compare back home. Why? Because you'll go to the hospital and there is no scanning. What happens is, you know how our midwife just checks you around and that's it. But for me, I had a complication that was detected very early when I was like 2 months pregnant, 3 months pregnant. And the doctor started preparing me like, hey, this is the complication that is you have. And if this is not addressed, placenta previa, if it's not addressed, because I was having too much bleeding, it's leading to this, it's causing this, you might lose it, you might have a miscarriage. I felt like at least they walked me and prepared me through. And even when I kept on calling, I used to call my elder sister a lot and I'll talk to her and I will share to her. She was so much surprised that I'm getting all this help.
Mm-hmm.
Because for her, she has had like 2 miscarriages before. She has 4 children, but she has had miscarriage. And how this happened, if there the help that I was getting here, she might not have lost her babies. And so just having that conversation with her and telling her, oh, I went to the doctor and they did an ultrasound and, I'm able to see the baby. I'm able to hear the heartbeat. I'm able to see this. She's like, wow, they do that? And so I felt like just having a conversation with them, it really made me see how a little bit I was privileged to be in a nation where at least there is a doctor, even if it is too expensive, you can't afford, but there is at least that there is an assurance that you will have the service. The only problem is you need money to get this service.
That's right.
That's
usually a lot of it.
Yes, a lot of it. That is the problem. But when it comes to the availability, it's just the accessibility that it has been made difficult and hard. But now when we come back home, there isn't. And let me give you a simple thing. So after birth, I was given a stool softener. It's a stool softener. And I was drinking it and I was telling my sister, she was like, they gave you a stool softener? She's like, for what? I'm like, for me. She's like, no, we don't get that. But and then I tried to engage her and I asked her, but your first week after delivery, how do you eat? And she tells me, oh, I take porridge or something, light. And I asked her, why do you do that? And then she tells me, so we eat ugali is our staple food. And then she tells me, you want me to eat ugali and then have scream when I go to the bathroom? And I said, you see, that's why I was given a stool softener. I can still eat food because I have to breastfeed. I need to eat well. I can still eat well and have no difficulties going, to help myself. But you, because you're not given a stool softener, for the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you don't eat well and you keep on complaining, oh, my breasts are dry, I don't have milk for the baby. And that does not only affect the mother, but it's affecting the growth and development of the baby. So some of these things and just how they could access them, it's very hard. Just leave alone that process of going through that. That is after, the postnatal care is not available and it's not there. And then it comes to family planning. Because here I was given the options and I even was asking the information and I was like, okay, so what is the effect of this? What is the effect of this? And they took like 3 days guiding me through that because I asked. Now, I said, if you don't know, you can't ask. I asked because I'm doing a master's in public health. And so I know it's my right to ask those information and know before I use any contraceptive option that is there. Now, my sisters, they never get a chance to that. So I asked her, how do you do? She said, oh, I went and they told me to try this. I tried that for 3 months. It was not working. I went back and they told me, let's again try this. So it becomes like a trial. And sometimes it's not that they go back and they tell them, oh, you have to use the natural way. So I was asking, okay, so explain to me the natural way. So it becomes a little bit hard because even as much as they wish to have them, they don't have the right, correct, updated information of what they're having. And even whatever that sometimes is made available by these pharmaceuticals, the companies, it's what has been rejected on the other end. And so they become like, we are on trials, they're just using this to try. It's not the exact right thing that I'm getting here. And so that comes in a way of those women that are really trying to seek help that they need. And even as much as they try, how far it is, it becomes hard. And then we look into our traditional practices. So some of our traditional practices, we love our culture and our tradition, but some of them are too harmful. So we talk of child marriage that is so rampant and still very high. And when a girl gets married at the age of 10, 12, 15, her body is not even so much ready to give birth. And because of limited access to family planning, this girl is giving birth each and every year or after 2 years. And so it becomes even so hard. So I do medical checkups, retreats every year for girls. And sometimes 20s, the teen moms, they come there and you look at someone and she has 3, 4 children already. At the age of 21, this girl is already experiencing a lot of problems and issues. And then the problem is, in our culture, a child is only a son. If you have daughters, they say, have a son and your name continues. If you have a girl, that is not a child. If your firstborn is a girl, secondborn, thirdborn, fourthborn, fifthborn, sixthborn, a girl, the husband's family can make you keep on giving birth until the day you give birth to a son. If they won't ask their son to marry another woman to give them a son. And it becomes so hard to the woman, to the mother. And then we have other practices like female genital mutilation, the circumcision of girls. Now, female genital mutilation has adverse health effects, especially to the reproductive health of a woman. Not only to her body, mental, physical, but also that part when she is becoming a woman to get birth. A girl or a woman who has been cut, she's like 4 times at risk of going through surgery, not a normal birth. And a girl who has cut, because it's her clitoris that has been cut, they never have the pleasure to just, so it kind of affects the reproductive health of this woman. And once that is done, that is something that cannot be reversed. And so the woman or the girl, they live with those adverse health, psychological, physical effects for the rest of their life. And because it's a private thing, we don't go to gynecologists, because our gynecologists are found in big hospitals like Nairobi Women Hospitals, Aga Khan Hospitals, that most women in the rural areas, they don't get a chance to go to. And because it's a private thing, we are culturalized not to talk about our private issues in the public or with anyone. So those have become some of the hindrances of, when it comes to the maternal and reproductive health of some of our girls in Kenya.
I want to ask you one last question, because I know that my sis is ready to eat. Okay. One last question. Along those lines, when you think of the church's involvement in the cultural practices of what you've just described, what is your hope or desire for the church in shifting or contributing to better cultural practices that promote better maternal and reproductive health outcomes?
So I'll say one is, my hope is that the church is awakening. But I'm not so happy about it. Why? Because it is our theology that even contributes to some of these practices. When we keep on preaching the submissiveness sermon, when we keep on preaching the purity sermon that only undermines the rights and the dignity of God, it becomes a little bit challenging for the church to move. Okay. If you allow me, I'm gonna turn off my camera.
Please do.
To suit her as we continue with this conversation. Sorry, don't want to join the conversation. Okay. But where I find hope is that deconstructing of those theological ideas and sermons is really what is going to help us see through the lenses. And I love the United Methodist Church. I love our social principles that especially, talk about the maternal health and healthcare, and ask our local churches to really advocate for the rights of our mothers. A mother is a very important person. It doesn't matter, be it biological or just a mother who has adopted. It's a lot. Mothering is a lot. And even those who don't have their own biological children, they're still mothering. They're still taking care of, the community. And so it's our church to see it from a different angle. I am a deaconess, and one of my my ministry focuses on the healthcare and education for girls and women. And I really appreciate so much when our pastors, we are able to sit on a round table and talk and discuss about these issues. Trust you me, it is our pastors on the pulpit that really reinforce our cultures. Because even if a woman goes with a complaint, they'll be like, oh, but the Bible says a woman should learn while quiet. A woman should be submissive. Have you been doing that? Now they start making this woman feel guilty, feel like she's on the wrong side, than helping her out. So I'll say we are not yet there. As a church, as a global church, we are not yet there. A lot needs to be done in terms of resources to just support, like, our midwives be able to go to midwifery school, and get to learn that education, to support our mothers even go to school, just learn basic information, to support our local health centers to have those resources, to even the policy, to push for the policy. We are talking about abortion rights.
Mm-hmm.
In our context, that is not a topic that, our mothers or even our fathers will feel comfortable for us to discuss. But it's a right that the women need to have a conversation around it. Family planning, that's a right. So the women need to know and have that information. So having those policies, it's very important. And then another thing is, how do we disseminate information? How is the church even helping to disseminate information? And in this, I'm talking about, let me just, I was looking at our new social principles that are being developed.
Yes,
and I'm so happy that at one point I was part of that. And one thing I appreciate is we having them in different languages. We having it in English, in Swahili, in French, in Spanish, and in German. Deaconess, she's ready to go to sleep.
I know you have to put the baby to sleep, so we will end there. But Leah, thank you so much. I just thank you for your lived experiences, for your awareness, your commitment to education. I am excited for this Master's of Public Health that you will be researching and writing. And we'll keep you in prayer. I'm gonna let sis, because I know it's probably not time. It's time to put her down. But thank you for.
Yes, she's like,
I want to go to sleep.
She's like, Mama,
go
to sleep, right? She's like, I need to go to sleep.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It has been great to just have this conversation. And I hope that it's a conversation that we continue having and just seeing how we can reach out and help, because annual health is very important. It's my heart when I see that just in each and every 90 seconds there is a woman dying or maybe developing some complications because of maternal and reproductive health issues. It just breaks my heart. So I hope that we can be able to.
I am so grateful for Leah in her work, her ministry, how she shows up as a mother to her beautiful 8-month-old daughter. And I'm really grateful for the conversation that we were able to have about experience, and then also how the church and faith communities interact with that. We didn't have enough time because my little sis, she was ready to take a nap and be fed. So we didn't have enough time to read through the letters, but I wanted to read an excerpt for you all. I also had a great conversation with another woman. Her name is Mrs. Joyce Mendenga. She is doing maternal and reproductive health work in northern Nigeria. And one of the questions that I asked and she wrote and reflected on were questions about what her experience, work, or ministry was in serving this field of maternal and reproductive health. And this was her response. She says, I have both negative and sweet experiences, but the most important is that I was able to touch the lives of women of childbearing age, counseling them before and after marriage about womanhood, understanding the challenges from conception to childbirth, lactation, being a good lactating mother, and letting them know the importance of exclusive breastfeeding, even though not all women are able to breastfeed consistently. One interesting but difficult thing I faced in my region, which is in northern Nigeria, is child spacing or family planning. And even those who are educated use their religion to reject family planning. In northern Nigeria, women, even the elite, have to take permission from their partners or mother-in-laws in the absence of the spouse to access health services, even if she is bleeding or in labor. In rural areas, inadequate sensitization on maternal health is a major cause of non-attendance of health services. She writes, it was very frustrating at the beginning with lots of meetings with religious leaders and community leaders, women's groups, trainings, and other interventions from both governmental and non-governmental organizations or NGOs. And they helped with sensitizing the northern part of Nigeria so that women will know that their health is in their hands. I really hope that you all were able to glean pieces of information about what the current realities are for women, girls, and femmes who are making these choices as they enter into their maternal health journey. As is our custom, go ahead and place a word, a phrase that called you throughout the duration of the conversation, or from what Mrs. Madenga had to write in her reflection. What is that word or phrase that you are taking with you even after this virtual space? Go ahead and place that in the chat. And as you do so, I want to remind you that we have a podcast, the Letters to My Daughters devotional podcast, that will be made live for Module 4 sometime in the middle of this week. I encourage you to continue to listen and to be guided by that as we explore our spiritual disciplines as it relates to this intersection of faith and advocacy. And I have enjoyed being in conversation as we've been traveling and presenting on the work of Letters to My Daughters. And the question has been, how might we be able to have this in our church or community, wherever it is that you are doing ministry? And I want to implore you, to encourage you to ask the questions of how might you begin to incorporate some of the things that we are learning here into the ministries that you have that already exist, right? So is this a Bible study? Could you include or incorporate some of the things that we're talking about in your prayer group? For clergy, could you perhaps include some of this or preach about this from the pulpit? These are the things that I'm hoping that we'll continue to have a conversation on even after the ending of this program. I want to make sure that you know that I am availing myself to you. Please feel free to call or email me at chedwards@umcjustice.org, and I would be happy to serve as a conversation partner or just to work with your church or community in making sure that we are creating ministry models that are able to comprehensively address the issues, the social conditions relating to women, girls, and femmes. You all, I'm so happy to have taken this journey with you thus far. Our last session is in December, Module 5, where I will be joined by some of my favorites, where we will be closing out the conversation on Letters to My Daughters. But until then, I am holding each and every one of you in prayer, and my prayer is that you would go in grace and go in peace. God bless.